Welcome to Truth Jihad Radio. I'm your host, Kevin Barrett, bringing you all kinds of interesting information that you're never going to hear in the corporate-controlled mainstream. Today we're going back to the topic of the events of September 11th, 2001. And we're trying to get a debate going about those events. I've been doing this for many years. For more than 5 years now, I've been offering $1,000 and then $2,000 to any University of Wisconsin teacher who would debate me about 9/11. I was essentially expelled permanently, not only from the University of Wisconsin, but from all of the American Academy for the crime of questioning the events of September 11th. The least they could do is explain to me why I'm wrong. Well, I'm not having any luck, so we thought we would turn to the physicists, who are really the people most qualified to talk about what happened to the buildings on September 11th, 2001. And so welcome to the third annual 9/11 Physics Debate, sponsored by Aneta.org. We've had a couple of previous debates in which nobody would show up to defend the official story. Not one physicist in the world is willing to defend the official story of 9/11. And here we are again. Dr. David Griscom held up the physicists and in the previous debates, and this time it's Dr. Crockett Grabbe. So it's great to have Dr. Grabbe on the show along with Rick Shattuck of Aneta.org. Welcome both of you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is an introduction sponsored by Aneta, which is the Association for 9/11 Truth Awareness, with offices at 1629 K Street in Washington, D.C., lobbying Congress on Capitol Hill, and law enforcement at the FBI headquarters for a new 9/11 investigation. And we also help the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth to pass out petitions on Capitol Hill, and the DC 9/11 Truth Group. We've been organizing debates, the physics debate. There's also an engineers debate, along with Wayne Costi, and the 9/11 Truth Outreach Group. We've also talked to presidential candidates as they tour the country, and that's at Aneta with the link Political Action. We've talked with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump about the 28 pages Bush classified about who helped fund 9/11. We also sponsor some websites such as 911police.org to encourage people to talk to their local law enforcement about 9/11. We've done database analysis of the Architects and Engineers Truth Petition, showing how many are from top schools such as Harvard, CalTech, PhDs, SEs, and PhDs. And for this debate, we have a graduate from CalTech, PhD with honors graduate, Dr. Crockett Grabbe, and to find Grabbe, and we called over 30 university physics departments and 2 physics societies, the DPG and the APS, the American Physical Society. And we looked on the website, looked for the physics faculty, find the department chair, give a call, a follow-up email, and then another call. And I also talked face-to-face with some physicists, and it was very enjoyable to talk to professors. And now that we've been doing it for 3 years, some remembered me from last year and wanted to know how it's going, and hopefully this will stimulate these professors to talk to their students about 9/11. And it was a great honor to be able to talk with Nobel Prize winner Sheldon Glashow at Harvard, and the staff of CalTech, all top physicists, including Dr. Fiona Harrison, who has quite a high Hirsch index. That's HIRSCH, and that's one of the requirements we are using. One would be a PhD in physics from an accredited university and a Hirsch index of at least 10, which is a measure developed by Dr. George Hirsch of the University of California as a way of measuring objectively a scientist's publications and how many references and citations there are to his work. And so that would help us to make sure we're getting good, highly qualified physicists. Because many people on some of these forums, could all think that they are, know Newton's laws of motion, and so it's important to set up an objective bar that the scientific community would agree on. So, so our call list is posted at 911debate.org if you want to see which universities we called, and we even have recordings that people want to hear. Basically, it was a brief script that I would say that in 2014 and 2015, Dr. David Griscom, who's a PhD from Brown, worked at NASA, DARPA, published over 200 papers, and a Hirsch index of 52, which is pretty good. He won the 0.911 Bitcoin, now worth about $380 for the charity of his choice, and to help in his research. Dr. Grabbe is a PhD in physics from CalTech, and so let's turn it over to Dr. Grabbe.
Grabbe, yes, welcome.
Yes, my name is Grabbe. Just to clarify that, because it seemed to be a little unsurety.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. For listeners to follow this, I have a computer can get on the web. I would suggest they go to my website, which is sealane.org, SEALANE.org. There I have about 50 figures, 49 of them which are in my book that I put out a few months ago, book titled How the World Trade Center Was Really Demolished. This is sold on the World Wide Web. It's a good deal for a paperback. It has 45 of these color figures in it. It's only about $17. But I will show some of these figures, and then some of them I'm going to click on the image or table name to get a detailed view of them. After the discussion is finished, those detailed images for people who are following me from home, always click the back button up near the top left of the page to go back to the full figure list. With that said, I would point out the CIA decoded Bin Laden's group's plans to target the World Trade Center Twin Towers with planes in the fall of '98. That not only gave them adequate warning, it also gave time to exploit this planned attack for ulterior motives. And I would say the public was never informed of the fact that they were planning to attack us with planes because these ulterior motives were being developed. And these figures go to figure 3. That was the schematic of the figure from the 911 attacks. It shows the World Trade Center. And click on that figure to go to a more detailed image. And the detailed image shows the two planes that ran into the towers. The WTC-1 is the north tower. The plane hit high into the center on it. The WTC-2 is the south tower. The plane hit lower down on it and almost missed, in fact, because it went right through the tower. It did not catch the top of the tower, and it ended up in pieces. And if you go back to this the full figure list, you see that figure 5 is basically a picture of the plane after it has come out of the south tower, and there's still one of the engines still there operating, but the body and everything else has been stripped off. Let's look at figure 6, which is the destruction of the World Trade Center after the towers fell down and after the building 7 fell down later that day. And you see the World Trade Center looks like a war zone. All of these buildings are completely destroyed, but it has one peculiarity. There is no smoke anywhere. There is all of this white dust that dominates, but there is no smoke. And I assure you that people that confuse white dust with smoke, this is clearly not smoke. It's white dust. And notice that white dust is accumulated on the tops of a number of the buildings there.
Okay, how do you explain that?
I'll explain more about this white dust, but this white dust is made from is made up from the softer materials of the building, and I'll show in fact how that white dust comes from an explosion in a little bit. But let me let me go on and look at Table 8, which is Table 8. Click on Table 8. It's a major, that has items that are major evidence for explosive demolition of the World Trade Center, as opposed to fires having brought them down. The major evidence is that one, on Center collapses, 2, rapidly expanded huge death clouds of our nations, 3, almost free fall speed of each collapse. They came virtually straight down. The South Tower and the North Tower in Building 7. And Building 7 was in free fall for part of its collapse. You had total collapse of the North and South Tower in Building 7. You had massive pulverization of concrete and the softer materials, and that's what produced the white dust that I was referring to. You had multiple sounds recorded of these explosions. You had multiple sliced, even evaporated steel. That was reported in the New York Times in the fall of 2001, that there were evidence for evaporated steel reported by some of the firemen and other workers and the cleanup of the World Trade Center site. You had large demolition rings in the aftermath of the World Trade Center. You had rapid horizontal objections of multiple steel beams in squibs that were observed traveling in all directions, but they were going horizontally. They could not have come down from fires. You had exceedingly hot temperatures, as I will be discussing, and this is these hot temperatures of fire, hotter than fires could produce. You had rapid collapses, and a rapid collapse from fire. So I will show how that violates energy and momentum conservation in a little bit. You had no fire that was observed in the South Tower and Building 7 collapses. And you had only a very brief explosive fire in the North-South collapse. And the 13th reason no skyscraper has ever collapsed due to fire. Now I want to go back to the figure list. And I want to show one example of that last statement. I have several examples of skyscrapers on fire that did not collapse. But that example, the one example in Figure 11 is the Windsor building. That was in Spain in 2005. It was a huge fire, went all the way up the skyscraper and lasted 23 hours. Well, what happened to the skyscraper? Well, you can see, go back to the list, and look at Figure 12. In Figure 12, you see a huge burned-out building. Nothing collapsed on it. All it was a blackened skeleton that was left. No building has ever collapsed due to fires.
Okay, that's something the official story defenders would say, well, 3 of them collapsed due to fire on September 11, 2001. But of course, that defies the probability.
I know that. But I want to show you something else that's peculiar about. Some other things that are peculiar about this collapse. In Figure 14, a crane. This is in the cleanup operation. It's 16 days after 9/11. A crane picked up a glowing hot metal at the World Trade Center, and that glowing hot metal, from the spectral index, you can see how hot it is. Because when you have glowing metal, it's characteristic of the temperature. And that temperature shows that metal gets up to, the bright yellow shows it gets up to almost 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is much hotter than fires can produce. There was something else producing the very hot things that are shown in this. And if you look at Figure 16, this is a NASA plane that overflew the World Trade Center. The first one that shows several hot spots where it overflew it on September 16th. That was 5 days after 9/11, and you have These yellow and red areas, a number of areas that are greater than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is 5 days after 9/11. Those temperatures could not have been produced by fires. I want to go into then the fall of the South Tower.
Okay, and just to preface the issue of the fall of the towers, Rick Shattuck suggests that you discuss how the official story violates Newton's 3 laws, including the inertia, the law of inertia, and force equals mass times acceleration, and so on.
Go after the fall of the South Tower, then I'll get into physics, get into some physics principles. The first thing I want to show is what happened, exactly what the fall looked like. Go to Figure 20. Figure 20 is before the collapse started. This is the tower smoking because the planes have run into them. You have the South Tower on the left. You have the North Tower on the right. They're both smoking, but the oxygen started fires because they're producing tremendous amounts of smoke. But then let's go back to the index, and look at Figure 22. That's when the collapse. Figure 21 and 22 shows the collapse starting. The collapse starting is white streams coming out horizontally, almost. It's coming out almost 40 feet in about 3/4 of a second. It's going 30 miles an hour. Now, horizontal, something coming out horizontal is not what you expect due to fires, and there's tremendous parts of the side that are going, and if you go to figure 23, above that, gray dust starts coming out. That is an area which was on fire earlier, which is now turned into a lopsided. It looks like it's about to fall off. A lopsided, saying the top 1/3 of the tower is about to fall off. It looks like it's about to fall off, but in fact, that was just the gray dust is coming out where the fires were. And then if you go to the Figure 24, like I expressed at some places, all hell breaks loose, because there you see the white bottom and the gray bent top. They ain't separated. It's like an explosion separated the two of them, and you have new white squibs coming out very rapidly. See this white squib over to the left-hand side? It's coming out over 100 miles an hour, and you also notice that the top of the top is falling down very rapidly. It's falling down almost. It's falling down 90, about 140 feet in a second. So it's going close to 90 miles an hour downward, and it continues in Figure 25. It's coming downward. That's faster than gravity could possibly pull it down. There's something else that's going on there. And now, if you look at Figure 26, that's the last shot from that camera. That's about 1.5 seconds later. Almost all of the top is gone. It is almost all turned into gray dust. It's over halfway. There's some parts of it left, but you notice then the white dust, another white dust starts appearing. So that has to be a new explosion. So I want to go back.
Okay, can I ask a question about? You said that the top part of the North Tower is coming down faster than gravity could pull it down. That is, you're saying it's going faster than free fall acceleration, and if so, what could possibly cause that?
Well, I will. That was something, since it takes a little explanation, but that's basically. I think it's being pulled from the gradient of what is exploding inside the top, the bent top that's come off.
So it's the force of the explosions that are driving it to come down faster than gravity.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the force of explosions that are driving it to come down faster than gravity, because there happens to be a gradient. Right now, we don't know what is causing it to come down, except we know that gravity is not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Look, click on that table. It says the physics principles known for centuries. That table, you go into that table, it has two principles. First is the energy and momentum are conserved. The energy, the momentum is P equals mv, mass times velocity. Those two things are conserved. And one of the consequences of these conservations is the three laws of Newton that Rick just talked about. Because energy conservation says energy does not change unless there's a force. And force causes something to move. The momentum conservation says momentum does not change unless there is a force. And the force, it changes the velocity, therefore the momentum. Well, the consequences of this, first, if the buildings collapse from fires, as Nice claims, all the gravitational energy would be available, because the gravitational energy pulls things down. The most the gravitation could fall from gravity with force equal mg in 1.5 seconds is a distance of t equal 1/2 gt squared, which is 36 feet. That's freshman physics. 36 feet downward. Yet, currently the top, this top that I'm talking is falling faster than that. It's observed to fall 140 feet in less than 1.5 seconds. So it's accelerating clearly faster than the acceleration of gravity. And furthermore, gravity cannot produce the sizable horizontal energy that is used. We've already shown the stuff coming out horizontally. Gravity cannot produce that. So the source must be another force. There is another force here. How is the conservation of momentum satisfied for the South Tower squibs? Well, since the momentum doesn't balance, there must be a force to create a new momentum. And the squibs that are observed says there's a counter force that's horizontally producing it. And only an explosive force can produce these observations, can produce that horizontal force, as well as the force that's coming down.
Well, there was a JPL scientist, Ryan Mackey, who proposed that the steel beams kind of bounced to the right with the sufficient force to go the 300 feet into the American Express building and lodge like darts. What would you say in answer to that? Could there be?
Oh, well, I will show what gives all that momentum, but in fact, I'm not sure what he means by bounced. I'm not even sure.
He calls it ricochet, and he spoke about that in a debate with Tony Zambodi on Ron Wyack's Hard Fire show. In that debate, he said that those beams could have ricocheted.
Yeah, I don't have any idea what he was talking about. Let me show some things from the fall of the North Tower, which actually shows a lot of beams there, and so that's probably what you're referring to. Let's go. I'm going to go back to the index.
Yeah, it seems to me that the steel beam would need something to bounce off of, and some reason for the beams to go laterally instead of.
And if you look at those figures with the North and South Tower, there's nothing there for them to bounce off of. Notice there is that building nearby that is not quite as high. It goes up to about near where the squibs are coming out from the South Tower. But anyway, it in fact shows that the bottom 2/3 of the tower is not moving, while that top bends bends and collapses and everything, but the bottom is not moving. I'll skip over the red grade ships and get back to them later, because we were talking about the South Tower collapse. The Figure 29 is a later state of the South Tower collapse, and 30 is white dust rolling through Manhattan after the collapse, and that white dust all comes from the collapsing South Tower. But look at Figure 31. That is the North Tower. This is a police image. It's basically a figure taken from a police image 5 minutes before the North Tower starts collapsing. Now, the South Tower has already collapsed, but the North Tower has not. But they're trying to look for the fires in the North Tower. Well, there are some fires. There are some fires high up on the floors, but the lower floors have all been cut out. Now, what happens? Suddenly, you have an explosion of stuff coming up from the lower floors. Suddenly, you have these Figure 32. You have these two fires penetrating outside the tower itself. And one might say, well, this is evidence for fires in the tower, but in fact, that stays there for less than 1 second. Within 1 second, no visibility is there of any fires. But it does start to collapse. In Figure 33, you have showing what I call squibs from the North Tower. Two of them are had, we can't make much detail of those, but the one that goes to the side to the right, you can see it's made up of varying density material. It's not just air like Popular Mechanics tried to claim in their 2003 edition. And many others have claimed this this is material.
Yeah, Michael Shermer claims that that's puffs of air.
Show him that figure and ask him how air looks like that.
Yeah, it looks more like pulverized material than air to me.
Yeah, right. Precisely. Let's look at the Figure 35 and 36 show huge pieces of the tower coming down. But let's go to 37 and click on that and look at the figures. You see, everything from the tower is coming out. You see all these hundreds of pieces coming out from the tower. And notice on the right-hand side, it's very prodigious. I mean, I don't know what he means by ricocheting, because there are pieces. None of them are ricocheted, but they've all come down with the tower collapse. And you have pieces of the surface that you can identify are coming down. You have about 5 or 6 sections of the tower surface that have come down. But you also have things that are coming up. See that ice cream cone? Ice cream cone is stuff that is going up. Well, what is going on here? Well, let's go back to the index and look at the next slide. Figure 38. Let's click on the image for the Figure 38. This tells a lot of things about what is going on. It shows 2 explosions. This is the aerial view of the North Tower, and it shows 2 different explosions. There's all this white dust blowing white dust with one explosion, and everything is coming down from it. And there's that's a 2/3 of the tower. The top 1/3 of the tower is this gray dust, and that is going up. That is because that top third is that nanothermite explosion producing 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It was the one that produced the very hot material that was in observed for days in the debris from the tower collapses. And you notice that white dust, some of it's so hot that it's moving up into smoke that was probably came up there from earlier from the planes. But basically, it's made up of 2 explosions, a nanothermite and a more conventional explosion something like C4 or RDC, I think, or TNT. But the gray dust is where because nanothermite requires a temperature, and the heat from the planes was required before you could reach those temperatures to set off the nanothermite explosion. But below that, you would only set off the conventional explosion. And then notice the next figure shows that white dust going everywhere all over Manhattan. White dust from the North Tower. And it all comes from a conventional explosion.
Okay. So the nanothermite would have created hot material, hot dust that went up, and the conventional explosives created relatively cooler dust. That's the white stuff that we're seeing covering the entire city.
That's right. And the gray dust that went up, I mean, it merged all over, So I mean, it wasn't so obvious to the residents of Manhattan, but I guarantee you this white dust was. They do the white dust with from both towers covered everything. All right, that kind of covers the two towers. And by the way, all three of these buildings had material from nanothermite. If you go back and look at the figure 17 out of order, in 2009, Niels Harrit and a group of international scientists found red-grade chips in the World Trade Center dust, and they found that those chips are explosive. That when you heat them up to about 700 degrees centigrade, you have these chips are a combination of aluminum and iron oxide. And what happens is the aluminum essentially grabs the oxygen away from the iron, and so it produces very hot iron and aluminum oxide. And so very hot iron reaches temperatures up to nearly 3,000 degrees, and those are observed like in figure 18 and figure 19. But that is basically the nanothermite. It produces the very hot stuff. Now let's go look at figure 40, and that's back to the sequence we were on. In figure 40, this was analyzed by I believe it's David Chandler out at Los Angeles. The fall of Building 7. Building 7 was basically fell about 5 o'clock that day, several hours after the towers did. But Building 7 completely collapsed in 6.5 seconds. And yet, NIST, in 2008, they put out a report claiming fires brought it down. Well, Chandler's analysis showed that this building was in free fall for the first 3 seconds. Nothing like fires could have possibly have brought it down. It goes from zero velocity time equals 0 to up to about free fall velocity very shortly after that. And so there had to be an explosion to cause it to fall right around T equals 0. There was no other solution for that. This report that they produced in 2008 on how fire was melted down in 6.5 seconds, that has the quality of a 19th century report on perpetual motion machines. That's how bad it is. Because physically it is impossible for that to happen.
I understand there's been some more work on Building 7 that's been done and is still being done to even more thoroughly disprove the official nonsense.
Well, I'm sure there is. I mean, it's just one thing that I think that Chandler's work completely and I'm not sure what year he did this, but I mean, he completely destroyed the 2008 report. And 2008 report, I mean, nobody who knew physics believed that anyway, because physics was not possible. So
I think what I was referring to is this Architects and Engineers project at the University of Alaska, led by Dr. Leroy Hulsey, and people can look at that at WTC7evaluation.org. And he's another qualified scientist with the full set of PhD, PESE. He would be qualified to debate you. Unfortunately, he agrees with you, so we still can't find a qualified scientist to disagree with you.
Yeah, I can't debate with somebody I agree with on building 7. I want to show some more things about the towers came out from the towers falling down. This is surrounding material. This is surrounding areas that had stuff coming out from the sides of the tower, heating. If, for example, in figures 43 and 44, you have cars this hit. In 45, you have a nearby building that's completely destroyed, demolished. And 46, you have a parked truck that's destroyed. In 47, you have a bus that was completely devastated by these ejections. But I want to also point out, if you look at figures 45, 46, 47, and 48, there's all sorts of paper around there. None of that paper is burning or has burned. Guess where all that paper came from?
Well, that's probably office paper from the towers, I would imagine.
Yeah, right, precisely. Well, it was office papers from the towers of the World Trade Center. Yet, nowhere, anywhere is that burning. It's obvious the towers never caught fire.
Well, wait a minute. The towers never caught fire, but we have all these images of fires. Now, obviously not the entire towers. Much of the towers was never burned.
All the images of fires, there was only one fire, the fire in the North Tower that I showed a picture of. That's the only fire that is. There were no fires in the South Tower, and there were no fires in Building 7. There was that brief fire. Pictures that have been created showing fires from the North Tower, that has been reproduced over and over and over and over again. That's why where you see pictures showing fires that came from that fire in the North Tower. That was a momentous fire for a very brief time because of the explosions. But I can draw the conclusion that these three building collapses, the North Tower, the South Tower, and Building 7, the collapses were not from fires, they were not from lasers, they were not from missiles, they were not from nuclear weapons, but they came from these two types, a non-nuclear explosion of the three buildings that I discussed. And the scientists who were looking, who found the red gray chips in all three buildings, they concluded that including the towers had both explosions. World Trade Center 7 building had at least one of them. It had at least the white dust. I don't know if the people that blew that up felt any need to do this denothermite or even knew about it. I have a feeling that there were different people who blew up the Building 7 who brought down the towers from those plane collisions.
Now why would that be? Because the whole thing would be part of the same covert operation.
I'm sorry?
Well, the destruction of the World Trade Center would be all conducted as part of a very, very carefully orchestrated operation. And so how could you have a completely different set of people?
Remember, almost all of these things in the World Trade Center took place in the morning, and there was an explosion in the World Trade Center, but it was in the morning. So the one that completely took down the World Trade Center at 5 o'clock at about 5 o'clock that afternoon was in fact pretty separate from that morning explosion. The morning explosion, people reported that there were victims of that explosion. In the afternoon, the guards went by and they got everybody out of that building 7 before it exploded. And the reason is they knew it was going to explode, because guess what? Somebody decided to explode it. And I would claim that person was Silverstein, because he was the one that owned the building. And he even said in an interview that they decided to pull it, but he never explained what pull it meant, and he never talked about that again. But anyway, I would say that in fact that was separate from the work from the terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you could argue that the demolitions of the towers were conducted as kind of pyrotechnic shock and awe displays that were meant to be seen. In fact, the whole purpose of the entire 9/11 operation was to traumatize the public with this disaster movie footage of the exploding towers and the people eating clouds chasing people through the streets of New York. Whereas Building 7 was demolished in a way that was not meant to be seen. It was obviously just like all of the standard implosions you see in Las Vegas, as Dan Rather said. So I think we could say that they were designed differently, but I don't think that means they were designed by the different people. Could have been the same people, but they just, they probably planned to take 7 down under the dust clouds so nobody would see it, and something went wrong, and so they ended up having to do it late in the afternoon.
There was a company that had a contract since 1994, Ace Elevator Company, which had plenty of time to have access to the elevators, the perfect place to hide explosives. They got the contract in 1994. It was a small company called Ace Elevator, which sounds kind of like a front company. And previously, Otis Elevator had been giving very good service, and Otis is like, the Bell Telephone of elevators. They invented the elevator and had an excellent safety record. So it's been difficult to find employees of Ace Elevator Company and find out who they were and why the company came from nowhere, and after 9/11 disappeared. They went bankrupt.
Yeah, I would say 2 things. First, regarding the towers versus Building 7. Building 7 was a private ownership by Silverstein. The towers were public. So I guess they kind of came under different viewpoints.
Well, Silverstein actually purchased the entire complex on a 100-year lease, which is the equivalent of owning it, and that deal was begun in early 2001, and it was finished in July 2001. So he did own the entire complex for 2 months before the event.
He owned the entire complex. Okay, so
he doubled the insurance. He didn't have the highest bid, but he got it anyway, and then he doubled the insurance over what the Port Authority had carried. And the privatization of the whole entire complex to Larry Silverstein was carried out by Shorenstein, the couple of billionaire Republican Zionist bigwigs, including the head of the Port Authority, and then Louis Eisenberg as well, another billionaire Zionist bigwig, all engineered this privatization of the Trade Center that finished as Larry Silverstein and his group took complete possession.
I remember that doing research for that Anatomy of Mass Murders he published 2 years ago. That in fact he had purchased the towers, and I talk about that as he might have been the source of it. The source for a lot that was done, but I didn't say different. One of the other thing I wanted to point out in that Anatomy of Mass Murders, I show that I talk about that there was a particular weekend before 9/11, just very close to it, but before the 9/11, that all of the security in that building was cut off. All the security was cut off, and nobody was allowed in. And I have a feeling that that's precisely when when a lot of the explosive stuff was put in, right in the weekend before 9/11, because clearly the planes that were brought in by the towers could not have brought in by the terrorists could not have caused the buildings to come down, but there were clearly explosives that did, and so I'm just think of that conclusion was right on.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes left, so Dr. Grabbe, maybe you could tell us about the kind of final slide that you've titled "Scientific versus Political Methods."
Yes.
It's obvious that politics has trumped science here. Go ahead.
I'm saying?
It seems that politics has really trumped science in the.
That's right. That's very true, because that's exactly why I put this. This is a cartoon that I have to credit this to Steve Jones, because it was in one of he used it in one of his publications several years ago. But anyway, the cartoon. Click on that if you haven't to see the cartoon. It compares the scientific method to the political method, and the scientific method shows this professor with his microscope, with his bones, with all sorts of things. He's telling to see here are the facts. What conclusions we would go with them? So that's the scientific method. You look at the facts and you draw conclusions from the facts. The political method, on the other hand, you can say, a politician maybe, he says, here are the conclusions. What facts can we find to support it? So, and that's exactly the way this the government has conducted this, because they concluded fires brought them down, and they only went to FEMA and NIST commissions to find out how fires brought them down. And this came up with some, both of them came up with some real newsies on how, like I said, that 2008 report on how fires brought buildings down were just incredible.
Well, I believe it was NIST that claimed that they found no evidence of controlled demolition in their first report on the towers, and they were asked during the press conference, well, did you look for any? And they said no. So that's probably a good reason for not finding any. If you're not looking for it, you won't find it. So Rick Shattuck of Aneta.org, who's organized this series of 9/11 physics debates, has concluded that you, Dr. Crockett Grabbe, are indeed the winner of this debate, since no qualified physicist was willing to try to argue against what you're saying. So, Rick, why don't you go ahead and award Dr. Grabbe his prize?
Okay, well, on behalf of the Association for 9/11 Truth, we award you as the winner of the 2016 9/11 physics debate. And, one common objection is that maybe people didn't feel it was a topic worth discussing, but you see, it's an easy thing to do from the comfort of your home or office to debate 9/11 physics. So you'll be 0.911 Bitcoin, which is worth about 380 at this time, and I'll send you the instructions for receiving that through Coinbase.com. So congratulations, and it's hopefully inspiring other physicists to speak out about 9/11, to discuss the topic, preferably in physics classes.
Yeah, and hopefully it comes to the present classes. I wanted to maybe comment on your thinking about so many people have tried to forget about this. This was the greatest crime of the 21st century. There were a total of about 3,000 people were killed in 2001, and it's only 15 years after 2001. What follows all this mass murder is still something that to be pursued. I think it's going to be something to be pursued for for 100 years or more.
Okay, well, we're certainly not giving up here at Truth Jihad Radio, and neither is Aneta.org going to let go of this. And we'll be back, God willing, next year with another 9/11 physics debate, and maybe by then we will have eventually found a qualified physicist who's willing to defend the official story of what happened to the World Trade Center on 9/11, but I'm not going to hold my breath until that happens. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Crockett Grabbe and Rick Shattuck of Aneta.org. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.